Christine, it's 2003. You're at H&R Block Mortgage. You got there around 1997.
Yes.
Who are you in 2003? What's going through your mind? Where are you within the organization that you were with for 10 years and built this extraordinary career?
Yeah. In 2003, I am at that point one of the regional managers of the national retail sales division. There is one other regional manager with me, and I report directly to the SVP of sales. There are 14 districts, and then there are about 210 branches, about 900 loan officers. And traveling around the country to those branches, districts, holding meetings, and navigating the then world of mortgage finance, which everyone remembers was very busy.
So now you were there for 6 years, but you didn't come in at that level of success.
No.
It's 1996, 1997. Who are you then compared to who you were in 2003? What did that trajectory look like?
Yeah.
So it's 1996, 7, you just started, is that correct?
Yep, July. I remember, I had gone to a company that was a regional company, Assurance Mortgage, very big in New England, and they were immediately bought. I was there like 90 days, just got my business cards out, and I was an area manager in the state of Massachusetts. I was brought in, I was originating manager. I had 10 loan officers on Grove Street in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And when we were bought by H&R Block, who was opening its mortgage division for the first time, it had the tax division, 20 million some odd clients doing taxes. Its finance division was a couple years old, and now they were stepping into mortgage. They buy us, and they want that New England corner of the U.S. Map. It's a major market, obviously, and I get acquired through that. And the rest of the trajectory was, now I suddenly find myself in a much bigger company. It still was in the skeleton part of its growth because it was new. And I would go from, I think it was about 20 branches to start, all the way, compete with my guys, all the way up to the 150 mark and in the top 10 branch wise. And then I made my quest for district management position. There were 11 major markets, and I threw my hat in the ring to, try to get one of those positions. And I had to try twice, and then I got the Boston district manager position. And when I got that, it was in last place in the country.
Well, so when you achieved that, you started in last place.
Yes, the district I took over, which had 125 employees, about 80 loan officers, was in last place of the 11 major markets. It was not doing great.
Was this when it was acquired?
I don't know what was happening. I know it was new, it was growing, and there were more established areas in the country. Staying positive. I would say that, I got in there and rolled up my sleeves, and I took some time to, I actually sat with every single employee.
So what did that process look like?
Yeah.
You're saying there's a problem.
Yeah.
You're coming into things with difficulty ahead of you.
Right.
There's hard work that has to come. You've got to come in there and develop something.
Yeah.
Someone that's watching this that couldn't even comprehend that yet, but they have interest in landing feet on the ground where you are today. It's all the success. What advice do you give them based on what you did? Like, what was your process for going to that situation as the underdog and then overcoming it? What does that look like?
So I can tell you the biggest weight I put on myself was, one, I thought it was great that I got the opportunity. I didn't care. I didn't care if you threw me the worst district or whatever it was. And I never looked at any of them like, you guys are the worst in these 11 market areas. I just looked at it like I was sitting on the bench saying, put me in, coach, put me in. I was always eager to get into the, get on the field. I knew if you could get on the field and I could get the ball in my hand, I was going to make some plays. And so, of course, the beginning of that, I internalized. I've always been really good, I think, at putting myself in other people's shoes. And while I never made the gender thing a thing, I was very aware that okay, I'm going to manage 125 people, mainly men. what did they think about getting the girl district manager? Is that like a super bummer that I'm like, I've been now appointed as the girl manager? And so I went home, and I had to give a presentation to all of them. And I guess this would be the first time they would see me in action as a leader at the helm. And I can tell you, I saw 4 a.m. come awake as I built this PowerPoint and this lecture. And I looked at the reports and I thought, what do you say to a group of people who I knew you fundamentally needed to share the numbers, and they looked horrible on this report. So I'm like, I guess a lot of leaders would get up and say, I don't know, like, you look horrible on this report. My message was one of hope. I felt like that was where I wanted their vision to go to. And I got up and I said, everything that's happened before this point does not matter to me. What happens today forward is what matters to me. There are symptoms to what I see, but I don't want to diagnose you unless you tell me what's wrong. My competitor, which I'll warn you all ahead of time, I am one, which means you are all competitors now because we're all together. We're a team. I'm going to push you into an uncomfortable place because we need to pick up the pace that we're at. And let me tell you why you should be winners. You are playing in the New England market, which is the second highest average loan balance in the country. You are stepping up to a plate with a wiffle ball bat and missing. So I'm going to say it to you straight. You have advantages, you have wins in your sales, but we are not pulling those sales straight up. So let's talk about that. In the next 90 days, I will not throttle the engine of this car because I'm afraid I might break it and I don't know what I don't know. So that means we're going to sit down and each one of you are going to come to me and you're going to tell me what you believe. And I set the stage for these meetings too, because I said, when you come to me, please be as pointed as you can, professionally as you can, in what is wrong where you're working. What is wrong? What is broken in the area of your desk with the things hitting your desk? I want to know. I don't want to know about what this girl is doing or what that guy is doing or how this manager is bad, or I don't want the garbage. I don't want the gossip. I want to know, why can't you race the car you're sitting in right now? Because I need every single one of you doing that. And so that's what these meetings are going to be about. We're going to do this for 90 days. And at the end, I will come back and report to you what I find. And I will be as transparent as I am standing here right now. And that's what I did. I spent 90 days. And when I was done, what I discovered is that there were 3 trends. It was communication, it was morale, and it was lack of a plan. They had no direction. They had no anchor, and they didn't have a vision of future. So they lacked hope and they lacked structure, but they lacked the inspiration. They felt defeated. They knew they were in last place, and the previous manager to them was not encouraging them or inspiring them, and there was no communication. So I thought, well, this is going to be really easy. And so from that point forward, we met once a month as a group. Of course, we had subset meetings as teams amongst managers, and then they had their meetings with the people. We coined the plan Moving On Up. We labeled the plan,
wow.
the new
So
business plan.
Yes,
there was a new plan called Moving On Up. And there were pins, and we created a little skyline in Boston. And I handed the pins out, I think, in meeting number 4, the 4th month. And I said, I'd like you to wear the pin, and I'd like it to be a reminder of that each day, wherever we are, will be the last day we're in that spot. Don't worry about becoming number 1. Let's be better than we were the day before. Whatever it is that we got to do more of today than what we did yesterday, let's do that. And so each month I would go in and I would report their numbers, and we became number 1 in the company in 16 months.
In the entire company?
Yes. And I can tell you that during that time, around 6 or 7 months, when we had made it to like the average spot, nobody had guessed we would go there. So I already had a lot of fanfare. The team had a lot of fanfare, and there was a lot of like, wow, that's incredible. Where it gets hard in that storyline is it's easy to be average. It's so cliche. It's so easy to be average because just by the percentages, getting to average basically means doing things good. But to do something great, to beat the guys that have the momentum or are at the number 1 spot, the work it took, it was almost as if we were so exhausted when we got to like that 9-10 month mark that they didn't think they had much more in their engines. And that is when the speeches start to change, because that is where you really are in the locker room and everybody's sweating and people are tired and there's injuries and there's this or that, all these cliche type sports analogies that I use. And that is when I said, you have a shot. I would not have called this 6 months ago. I thought you could do great. But the finish line, you guys have a shot. I need this much more out of you, and I need a commitment from this group, because collectively, the power I see, we have what it takes to take the first place. And if you want it, who's going to step up? We're going to make history. We've got everybody's attention. We had the CEO's attention. We were getting video messages. We had other teams that were conceding and sending us messages. Yes. And Option One, because Option One, who was run by Bob Dubrish and Steve Naden, the COOs, were our brother company to H&R Block, owned them to us. And they were sending us messages like, we were like the little Rudy, team that was coming. And so there was a lot of fanfare there. And then when I finally got there and we got to that and we won and we got number one, and then we kept it there the next 3 years, that year I was promoted to the head of retail sales.
Retail for the entire
company.
When that organization transitioned into, what exactly occurred for the next phase of your life to continue growing to where we've become today, which is extraordinary. We'll get into all that. So, because you've accomplished, there's so much wisdom there. You accomplished this. What is happening in that transition? Was it this was the Great Recession time?
Yep. Yeah, so 2006, I get the phone call that we are going to shut the company down. It began, we were a publicly traded company, a Fortune 500 company. We were traded on Wall Street. And so there's always a fear with a publicly traded company that, what happens to market share if you have a division of the company that begins to lose money. So as an accounting firm, we knew that we could see far enough into the future. Believe me, like everybody, we could not ultimately see what was coming. But we knew bad things were coming, and we were big, and we knew that the only way to preserve the rest of the body of H&R Block was to amputate the leg, so to speak. And I got the call to shut down the entire division. And so, of course, you build something for over a decade, and it's build. I mean, if you've been the person that's carried the bricks on your back and laid the mortar and watched it build and did all these things, for me, that message always, people ask me all the time, like, how did you handle that call? And the truth is, I saw the faces of 1,000 people is what it was for me. It was, how do I now tell everybody that I've asked to come and work so hard goodbye? And how do I give them hope for the future? So I spent the next 6 months with human resources traveling around the country. I gave the message on March 27th of that year over a intercomed national phone call to the entire organization. And then I said, we will be there. And we went around and gave severance packages and brought HR and helped them build their resumes. And I shook hands and hugged people. And I wore then, on-call beeper for that summer. And pretty much my job was done at that point. And so I had a brand new baby that was under 1 year old. Who we just saw. And I would go and rent a house on the lake and stick my feet in the sand and think about what my next decision was. Of course, H&R Block was, wonderful to me and sent me off after 12 years of service with a wonderful severance package. And I probably could have just taken that and lived off that for a few years. But I thought, what a great little nest egg for me to put away, and let's get right back to work. I always had that feeling like there's no time to spare. I wrote Wise Eyes that summer on the beach.
Wise Eyes, the book that was published in 2018, was developed that summer?
That summer. Almost 80% of it. It would be refined in 2017, and I would take it back up because it was really a principle-based book, and it was about the story of my life in short stories meaningful stories, but about why I felt I accelerated. And, the funny thing is, even though it was drawn from an emotional place and I had the time to write it, it wasn't meant to be published.
Yeah.
I needed the next decade of succeeding and suffering and, life experience for that book to be what it now is.
It sounds like Thoreau. Don't sit down to write if you haven't stood up to live.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. So you build these people up over this serious investment of your life into them. You breathe life into them, starting from the bottom. Where's your head at after this as far as what your next step?
Yeah. I literally began to look for work in April. So I give the message that we're leaving. I still am carrying the beeper. I literally was the person that shut the lights off at H&R Block Mortgage. And I mean that. Me and Mike Coffey, who was the chief operating officer of the entire retail division, we literally were the last two people. Like, he was based out of Florida. He's an executive still to this day in the mortgage industry for another company now. But we're forever bonded by the moment of literally walking out and like being the last person standing. And so, I started to look around. There were jobs available. There were big companies that were offering me regional level jobs, which was the next step down from where I had achieved. And my ego told me to take those jobs, this side of my brain, because I could have a big title and I had really worked hard to get where I was. The compassionate side of me warned me that I would be taking this job for the title and maybe even for the pay, but I would be going into other companies where I might have to repeat what I just did at H&R Block, which is shrink the companies. Like, my job of taking the helms of those positions might have been more consolidation for those companies. And it was already hard to do with people that I loved, let alone to do it with people that didn't know me. Because now, if you're doing that with people that don't know you, you're just the gunslinger. And I thought, does my ego really need to have this title on this business card? Or do I need to do something? What is true about me? And I thought, I love growing things. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I needed to overcome my own ego.
Wow.
And I would accept a position for a then non-mortgage guy who had 52 loan officers out of Waltham, Lentegra Mortgage. And he needed somebody with mortgage-specific experience. And he was moving his family cross-country to California to take a position in the IT world, which is the world that he had grown up in professionally. And he wanted someone to watch the shop that he had built. And it was a profitable shop at the time. And so I took that job.
So you had to make a decision to fuel what is easy or learn from this experience in a different way that you hadn't yet experienced.
Yeah, I had LOs in the local market that were working under my roof for H&R Block that were turning to me. And it was kind of like, I could equate it to like, they were thrown off their cruise ship and they were in safety boats and they were looking to me like, where do I go? And I didn't know where to go because people were scattering in the industry. People were like, there was talk of regulation and Merrill Lynch was closing on Wall Street and Wall Street was horrified. And it was just like D-Day. They had done the mortgage implosion thing was on the internet. And it felt like the darkest hour of the mortgage business. And I wanted to put people in a safe place. And this guy gave me this shop. And I thought, for those that can follow me, I can get them to dry land. And, that's what I did. I said to everybody, come with me here that's in that local market. And I think everybody did that. I think in the 14 districts, my one-on-one conversations with the district managers in Denver and in Southern California and in Atlanta and in Chicago. I mean, as I'm saying this to you, by the way, the names of those guys are in my head and their faces and those conversations, which are hard conversations to have. And it was like, get your guys to safety. We need a divide right now. There's no one place we can all go to. There's no boat out there for 1,200 people, but you go find the boat for your guy in Chicago that you can take, those 40 people to. And that's how I felt for Boston. I felt like I'm going to get some guys. And I did. I took guys to Lentegra. And so I got there And I was happy to be working, and I was making a paycheck. And these 50 guys, I had showed up, and they were grateful to have me because they hadn't had a mortgage specific boss. And within a couple weeks of getting there, I get a phone call from Ryan Cuby, who is the head of a very regional sized company called Village Home Mortgage that Joe Pennebianco owns. And they're based out of Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And Ryan and I had worked together for many years at H&R Block before he had left to build this with Joe. There was probably a 3-year separation with him leaving to go build that, and then me arriving at Lentegra. And so Lentegra, was a wholesale retail shop where we were, putting loans out to different lenders. And Ryan wanted our business for Village Home. Okay. So he came, he called, we talked, he came. He knew the people I had brought over. I cleaned up the shop, the 52 guys I took over, there was a culling of the herd that occurred. Really, I looked at like the numbers, who we needed to get like a tight ship down. And so, we were at that point, we ended up at about the 32 person mark. We were a nice tight team. Everybody was producing. And, during that visit, he said, do you think your owner would sell? And because we want to expand into New England. And I said, I don't know if we would. But I'd be willing to do it. And enter stage left Joe Pennebianco, who would coach me through my first brokering of a sale of a mortgage company. And I would go through about a 90-day process with Joe on the other end of the horn, coaching me through the reins of this. And we would close the deal, and we would become Village Home Mortgage and change the door on our sign, the sign on our door. And there would begin a 12-year journey.
The beeper. You didn't have to have the access for people that were laid off through this organization that you were working with.
No.
When it was all said and done, you could have just wandered into the darkness or the light or the beach, but you had the availability for those 1,200 people, hundreds and hundreds of families. You think one person, they have a family, and then now you're at 10,000 people that are affected. You had that open communication for people to call you. Yeah. Even at this new company. Yeah. Before Annie Mac.
Still to this day.
Okay. Where does that come from?
I think that it comes from an obligation. Like, I think leadership is an obligation. This is where people get this really, really wrong. Is I don't think the best quarterback makes the best coach. I don't think necessarily that you can't be a great coach if you've been a good quarterback. I have seen some top producers take the leap into leadership and do really well with it, but you have to have a certain set of skill set. Listen, over the years, I have seen the greatest leaders. I would tell you that I am the culmination of only the most wonderful mentors that have sat me down at times when I needed to be told, this isn't good, or that needs improvement, or this is broken. And I've been told things that made me look in the mirror of myself over the years. I mean, nobody's born innately with perfect qualities. And, we all want to do good, but we don't always do good. Something drew me to leadership young. My book, In Wise Eyes, opens up with the story of my 8-year-old quest for student council and the then mentoring that I got to try to take those leaps. It's funny, but my entire life is a repetition of that story. Because truly every leadership I would take on would be a leap of faith that could I do it? And the one compounding core anchor to all of we can learn the skills. Like if you become a senior vice president and you're now responsible for a forecast that's $4 billion, you can learn what you need to learn from analytics and reports, and you can put the plan in place and the frequency of your meetings and all of it. But you cannot teach how to or whether you take the 11 p.m. phone call from the person that reports to you.
The character.
Because I think it's both a curse and a blessing. And I say this most transparently. It's a curse in that when you care, a lot of people would argue, and I think there were times in my career I was convinced I was not going to be the perfect fit for executive level leadership because I cared too much. It sounds stupid, like I'm giving some sort of reverse, what's your weakness? I care too much, I'm being honest with you when I tell you it's a curse in that way, because really good executors at an executive level, because let me tell you something, when you have to throw people out of your boat to save the herd, you've got to be able to do that. And I can do that. I fired hundreds of people in my career, hundreds, probably thousands at this point of people where I've sat one-on-one and I've had to let you go, or I've told a whole group of people. It is in the thousands, actually, as I sit here and do the math in my head. And so someone would probably say, really? I wouldn't expect that of you. You're so caring. I'm a business person. I'm an executive. But there's a difference between the greatest leaders that I have. And I could name there's so many, but I've had some incredible leaders cared. They cared. At the end of the day, I think, we are working for a living, but the ones that are really great, the people that turn their jobs into a story of success are the people that really do pour the passion into their work. And so, I think that that's something people have seen in me. And I think it's opened doors for me for opportunity, because I think at the end of the day, most CEOs want to believe that the person holding the helm of their ship cares for all the bodies that are on the ship.
Is it in you that can care so deeply and fire someone? What's your perspective on that? Is that something that you struggled with and then had to understand? Like, what is that perspective that maybe some people need to have that conversation today with someone close to them and they don't know how? How does that align?
I had to get to a point where I could understand that there is positive outcomes and futures for people who are misaligned in their work. And so the way that I was able to terminate people is I always gave a fair shake to everybody. If you're in sales is cutthroat because you have minimums to make. If you get in sales and you're not cutting it, we're having a discussion somewhere along the line where I'm saying, okay, Jay, numbers aren't where they need to be. What do you think you attribute to that? How can I help you? And together, that's my process. Together we're looking at like, okay, let's make a plan around bettering the situation. And then we set that free for a finite period of time, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. And then we're back at the table again, and your numbers are either improved or they're not. And if they're improved, we're like celebrating that, of course, because that's a fundamental key to leadership. Or we're having a tougher discussion, and the discussion is like, okay, Jay, you've been back at it 90 days. We've had the plan in place. Why do you think you're not executing? And this is what I get when I get to those intersections, is I sincerely believe that people are going to tell me their real reasons they're not succeeding. This is truly where the rubber starts to meet the road. But here's where it gets really difficult, is just like with consumers, with good credit and bad credit. All the people that have had messed up credit have legitimate reasons why. I believe that. Sickness, job loss, divorce, real things that have impacted their financial situation. And we can say, yes, those things are real and they have a real financial impact. So we accept those as explanations as to why you have this bad credit. But over here, the subset of good credit people, are we to believe that none of them have divorce, death, and illness? No, they do. But there's a mindset over here, come hell or high water, I'm going to make it work. So when I'm looking at you and you're saying to me, Christine, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've worked 50 hours a week and I just can't, get there, or everything I'm trying is not working. What I'm hearing when I hear that is that you don't know why you're missing. Your heart's in it. You're working hard. And that is not enough to stay at the table. So the hard part is that I do have to say to the person then, and we peel that onion, let's really strip it down to why, how many calls are you making a day? All the fundamentals. And I may set that person on a second attempt at a plan, more specific, and see what those results are. There's diminishing returns. But at some point, that conversation is, Jay, let me tell you something. You're an incredible guy, but you're going to starve to death doing this job. And there's something great that's out there. This is not that position. And I have felt like I am letting that person get free of some sort of chain. Sometimes people think they can do something they can't do. So I just always in my heart believed that I was helping them get.
Was there ever been a time where you were afraid to tell the truth? in that regard?
I think.
And then how did you overcome that?
I had one termination that stands out in my memory. It was set to be done on a Friday, and on a Tuesday, the woman's house burned to the ground. And I still had to terminate her on that Friday. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, because she was someone that had worked for me for like 6 or 7 years, and her family had lost their home and they were in a hotel. And on top of that situation, she begged me during the termination to not let her go. That affected me for like weeks. And I asked myself if I was cut out for this, for it to have that lingering effect on me. When I shut down H&R Block Mortgage, I had a guy in the Denver market stand up, and he had just taken a job in the Denver market. We had hired him 3 weeks before, and now we were shutting the branch down. And clearly, the person hiring him did not know we were going to shut this down. And I didn't know at that time. And he stood up and he said, I have a 6-week-old baby, and I had other job offers, and I declined them to come here. And now you're standing here putting me on the street. You're putting an infant on the street. I'm in a group of 125 people when this is being said. And so those type of moments in leadership are not the sexy part of your job. Leadership is not, I spend days today as a president of 2020 Vision coaching and consulting, and I hear lots of stories, and a lot of them are hard stories about leadership, and a lot of them are personal stories about life. And I do think I've gotten better at carrying that weight and compartmentalizing it and giving advice. And I just come from a much stronger place, and have been for a couple of decades now, in the belief that I'm giving hope. I'm a hope giver. And I'm directing people kind of towards that.
So when that's happening and your back's against the wall, and they may not be able to understand because you may have information they don't have, and there's pressure from all sides, how do you instill that hope into someone? You stay with them.
You stay with them long enough. Like, I think a lot of people would terminate and walk away. I have been the guy that sat behind for an hour and a half, clear my desk. This is a human business at the end of the day. I may have 15 minutes scheduled for a termination, and so does my subordinate. If it's going to take me clearing my schedule to get this person okay, then that's what it's going to take. And they know they can call me a couple days later, and I'm still going to be there, and a week later, and a month later.
Has that occurred?
Yes. I think even more so with me. I think that's where the whole curse part comes in, is that people know I care, and so there's a lot of leaning that occurs in my life towards me. And, I've had several intersections in my life where I literally looked in the sky and said, why did you make me a dependent? Why did you make me the person that people lean on? And sometimes I felt like I would buckle underneath that weight. And I got right with it. I don't know where, I guess I do know where, in the last decade, towards the back end of that decade, so 10 years ago, as I went through the H&R Block evolution and began my journey with Village and then eventually Annie Mac, I realized that this was my calling. Like, I had that epiphany in life that my purpose was to lead people, and I accepted it, and I got to peace with it. And I no longer felt that even though I cared, it was a burden. It really felt like a blessing. And I kind of realized, and this sounds, I don't want it to sound conceited, but I think I realized I was supposed to shepherd people. Like, I was really supposed to help people find their way. Like, I hope my 80-year-old self will still be helping people find the path. Whatever that is.
When you realized that, was that a specific experience or a mentor or both that kind of helped promulgate, bring out about this for all these years? So you're saying 8 years old to this huge career.
Yeah.
You had this realization.
There was a moment. Without all the specifics, I had many things that were occurring. My mom had a brain aneurysm, and she had been in a 54-day forced coma while she went through like 6 brain surgeries. H&R Block had closed its doors, so my 12-year job was gone. I had a brand new baby. I was freshly separated after a 14-year relationship. And I had a brand new company that I was responsible for improving.
Wow.
And so there was all those things, and there was a lot of weight there. And it really required, at the time, I felt like I needed help. I felt like I needed somebody to tell me it was going to be okay. And all this newness that I was feeling and change, that I should just have hope. And, I was asking, why can't I lean? I felt like at the time I needed to lean, and I couldn't, because there was so much weight on me. And if I had given way, it was going to be way bigger of a domino. There was way bigger. And I felt resentful towards it, because I just wanted, it was like, here I am at the culmination of this point in my life where I need to let go, and I can't, because so many people are relying on me. But you know what I realized is that was my salvation. That because I had that responsibility, because Jagger needed me, because those people needed me. It's true. It's so true. I don't know where I would have gone in life at that moment. I think there's a good possibility that I would have buckled in a way that I might not have come back from. And so
you persevered.
I did. I persevered, but I very prophetically looked at God and said, I hear you. Meaning, this was my job to do. And I know that sounds so big and it sounds so deep.
Well, if we bring it down to earth, you had 20/20 vision.
I know.
Dude, I mean, that's a lot for me to listen to.
Yeah, it's a lot to hear. It's hard to go back to that time for me and even talk about it. It is. It's really hard.
So hundreds of employees, and thousands of family members. Like, we think about it, and just how many people were able to move into new homes.
Yeah.
Because of your decision to keep moving forward and lean on your faith, your vision, your 20/20. Let me plug the truth. I mean, that was created with, you're writing Wise Eyes around that time.
I am.
So you're living what you're doing today at that time without it manifesting yet.
Right.
Is what, and now, Annie Mac becomes this monster company of helping, like, all these homes people are living in.
And it's
all these employees. You're integral in that.
Yeah.
What's your position?
It was a dire time, and Village Home Mortgage was a telephony-based company that had a telemarketing center out of New Jersey. My group in Waltham was receiving inbound calls. They had 50 dialers, making 250,000 calls a day, driving on automatic dialers. And the phones were ringing at the desks of my guys, and they were picking it up, and we were refining people as quick as we could. And then one day, the economic prediction was that the rates were going to come up, and in a way like they had never come up before that, and that the refi markets were going to dry up. And there was a meeting and a decision made, and it would be the culmination of us becoming Annie Mac and changing our model all at the same time. And so, hard times again repeat very quickly after the H&R Block thing. Only a couple years into this journey, I've got to tell the 30-some-odd guys at this point, we're going to shut off leads. We now need to go out on the streets, and we need to talk to realtors who, by the way, are also swimming upstream, have homes that are upside down. They have very few listings they can do. Nobody's selling. It's like we were like, go out there and find food. But it was like, Armageddon. There was like no food to find. But the only model we had a hope for, and we had Ryan Cuby had this brilliant idea, met these incredible people that still work for Annie Mac today, Russ and Carrie Fitzpatrick, and they had an idea to create an education platform called Annie Mac Works. And that would begin the partnership of us going out and helping realtors reestablish their businesses. So we went out. Instead of going out looking for food, we went out with food. So what we did is we sent our LOs out with baskets, and said, we're going to bring the food to you, realtors, because we know you're in rough shape. We're going to help you through education rebuild your business.
Just like you did when you went in H&R Block Mortgage.
Yep.
And you had the opportunity to inspire, not condemn or push.
That's right. Yeah.
You led that meeting.
It was brilliant on their part. I was the inside connection for that plugin for Annie-Mac, meaning I would be the ones that would educate the troops, the LOs, on how to position.
How to go and do that.
Yeah, how to position it, how to go have those conversations with the realtors. And what was really cool at the time, now it was kind of scary then, but now looking back, it was really cool how it worked out. They were actually, Carrie and Russ Fitzpatrick were associate works to begin with, and they had it licensed at other mortgage companies. And those other mortgage companies were 6 to 12 months in and not getting the execution that Annie-Mac was. And I have to say, we stuck with the LOs. I mean, Forbes magazine wrote about this platform and Joe Pinabianco twice for being innovative in the return of the mortgage industry. He had created something very unique. It would be emulated later by major companies that would create the educational platforms that you see today. And I won't name those companies, but they all began to grow up partner relationship education. But it was really invented and started there. And I had the pleasure of watching the very first 50-person room get the pitch, all the way to 40,000+ realtors subscribed on this platform. So the journey for me with Annie-Mac was amazing. I would go from where I was in New England to the regional, and then I would become the national director of sales and real estate, and I would see that platform all the way to last year.
What was it? Okay, so grassroots, take the principles are obvious, the character is obvious, caring, the innovation is there. How did you execute on, you're a leader and you have X amount of individuals relying on you in the beginning to learn how to use something, and then that grows.
Right.
So what's your process in the beginning of teaching and enabling leaders to lead? Because that's what it sounds like these originators have to learn how to educate the realtors on how to educate themselves, to educate the consumer. There's so much.
It was
how
rough.
do you execute?
It was rough at first. First of all, I had to believe in what I was selling. So the very first thing that you ever have to do as a leader, and I would give this as advice and do to everybody that's leading in any way, I don't care what it is you're doing, you cannot sell a leadership plan, a leadership product, a leadership anything unless you truly have poked holes and believe in that 100%. So when I had things that were rolled down, because there's corporate America and a corporate agenda. And when corporate agenda says, Christine, you're the head of sales, I want you to roll this new technology out. And I'm looking at that like, how's that going to help my guys? I'm going to beat the out of that platform up. I'm going to poke holes in it. I'm going to pilot it. And I'm going to say, that's cool. Okay, you can do this with it. You can do that with it. And I got to get my head around it. And I am very pointedly doing that.
Wow.
I'm dismissing. I'm thinking of the questions my guys are going to have. I'm fixing it. Maybe I'm going back to the originator of it and saying, we need to tweak this plan. We need to remove these things. We need to add these things. It needs to be more functional here. And when I end up with the basis of something that I really, truly believe in the value, I am the greatest soldier to swing that sword and get the troops to follow me, because I'm going to show up and I'm going to say, this is going to save our lives. And that's what I did with Annie-Mac Works, is I had guys that were like, what do you mean go and visit realtors? Like, the realtors are dying. And I thought every other loan officer in the world is going to go out on the promise of competitive rates and great service. Every one of them. It's vanilla. It's not different. And you are going to go out there and tell them that you're going to rebuild their businesses with them. Yes, you have good rates. Yes, you have competitive products, but you're going to go tell them that you're going to rebuild their business. You're going to partner with them, and you're going to show them the way through education. And that's what we did. We gave classes every week that were live across the nation. Some days we'd have 6 people on. Some days we had 600. Sometimes we had 16,000, depending on the topic of the class. And we did this, and they are still doing it. Every single week. And so what did I do? I wanted to become a subject matter expert. I attended every class for 3 solid years.
As a leader.
Every week. I would go to the classes being held on the realtor education. And it didn't matter where I was. If I was traveling, if it was 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., which is when the classes were held on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 12 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday, I would dial in and listen to the classes. And until it was, because the schedule would eventually repeat, even though they were always adding new things, there were some fundamental things. And I could do the classes. I could have done the classes by then. But I wanted to be able to be in a conversation where if I was going to be the trainer with the LOs, that I could do that.
Wow.
So here's what I think. I think fundamentally that basis of how to survive has taught me everything. I think that, it is the reason that we have seen success is fundamentally people want to know that you're telling them to go do something that works. It's kind of like today. It's 2019, and I know that I just took this huge leap again off this cliff, right? Building 2020 vision for success coaching. I knew I was going to build this company sitting on that beach writing wise eyes. I knew I would have a coaching company. I told Joe Pinabianco at the first dinner, I'm going to have a coaching company one day. And a year before I left, I told Joe Pinabianco, I'm going to go build my coaching company. I believe. I had to get to a place where I believe what I'm doing is timely. It's important. I understand what is dysfunctional about the mortgage industry. I know that I know the brokers are reemerging, and I know that companies need something that's going to attract good loan officers to their brands. I know that those loan officers need education that helps them produce in today's market with social media and all the techniques that are current today and going forward. And so that's what I've done now, is built another platform that once again is going to attract, increase production, and retain the very best sales talent in the banking space.
You had the vision.
Yeah.
You you must believe in the service or product, the solution to someone's problem. And then you have to get in front and actually live it and do it. Like, right? You checked out Andy Mack Works, for example. Is this something that I could get behind?
Right.
You showed up and actually led from the front.
Yeah.
And learned the language. It was so powerful hearing you is if the narrative was everyone's competing on price and service, and you rechange the narrative with story, with the story of the belief and the actual execution.
Right.
And you learn it because you live it and you're there.
Right.
You win.
Right. You can't sell something. Everyone's going to poke holes in everything you sell. If you're a sales guy, I hate that. I almost can't believe I've lived a life selling stuff. Kind of. I can't.
It's like the overall culture.
And I've been really good at it. But I can't believe I have. But I've tricked my brain into believing I'm not. When I was a loan originator, I was selling the American dream and helping people get into homes. I wasn't selling mortgages, but I was. When I was a manager, I was leading people to better their lifestyles. So I looked at all the people that ever came to work for me, and they would be driving their college-bound cars, and I watched them buy $1 million homes and put their kids through colleges over these 3 decades. I mean, I have watched an industry grow up, and I have told myself there's a bigger story, and I've made people believe there's a bigger story because we are all telling our story, and we got one shot at telling this story. I'm still telling my story, and I've got this next chapter in front of me, and it's going to be epically a great big whoop-de-doo in my roller coaster of my life story, because it's strap yourselves in, because I think people are scared watching the step I took last year. I think there was a gasp, not because I left the role that I was in, but because I did it at the time that we were thriving. I had amassed the notoriety. I was getting, industry wins and making, the height of my income in my career, and would say then, kind of like at the Seinfeld, like go out at the top type of thing. I really had taken my own advice. I had said there's a time to stop talking and pull the trigger in every sale. Don't oversell it. And I said, what am I going to do? Am I going to wait till 2025 and say, I was great in 18. I was on the cover of Women's Mortgage Magazine. You should come to my coaching company. Or am I going to go right now when I don't want to leave? Not really. And am I going to go out there and I'm going to chase this dream I have of believing that I have this purpose? But I'm going to tell you that there was a series of sudden things that occurred that pushed me to that starting line of this part of my life sooner than I had planned on being there. One of those things would be my older sister getting sick. My older sister to this day is battling lung disease. She and I shared a bedroom for 18 years. And, my dad overcame prostate cancer. My mom would eventually overcome her brain aneurysm. And those 3 life events alone in the last decade made me relook at life for its fragility and its timely.
Did that push you to say, why wait? I need to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. It did. I felt like there's no, it's so cliche. There's no promise of tomorrow. But I had felt like I had done a ton of things really well. And I keep looking back, and I surprise myself when I look back. Sometimes I don't know that my body took me on a ride somewhere. I'm almost like in some sort of autopilot doing things. And I look back and go, wow, I did that, or I was brave enough. I feel like I have enough people watching me that I'm gifting all of them this really great story. And the story is small girl, from New Hampshire. We all have the walk uphill both ways with, in the snow barefoot stories. But my story is about hope. And there's more hope for people to get. There's still a need for more hope. And I could have stayed doing great things as a senior leader, and that would have been a great ending to that story. Or I could give these guys the ending they've been wanting to see. Right?
Yeah.
Which is, we're going to take this thing on the road, and we're going to see how far my reach on a true belief of something that will do good for people, will improve their careers, improve the companies. And I ignore all the signs of you're the first woman to try to build a national coaching company, or you're the first woman to have a national convention, or whatever it is. I've never looked at any of those things my whole life. And maybe that makes me a good or bad advocate for women. I guess by example, a good example for women to say, just go for it and just do it. No agenda. I have no agenda. I'm not trying to beat my chest. I think a lot of people like to think, I've had guys come at me and say, oh, you're a woman advocate. And I'm like, no, I'm a woman. Simply put. And I'm sorry that has to have a label. But, I'm really not advocating for anything. I'm just doing. And I happen to be a woman. And so for women, I do want to dedicate part of my life. I finally made a decision. It was hard to come to, because I didn't want to ostracize, because stigmas and labels occur when you do things like this. Everybody kept saying, create a women's coaching company. And I refused. I said, no, I'm creating a coaching company.
What brought you to that thought?
Yeah. That I wanted to just create a company for both genders, or that I finally realized I needed a division of women's coaching?
So the first, definitely both. The first is people tell you to do this, focus on women, for example, that conversation. You said, no, I'll focus on both. Why?
Yeah. And I got to tell you, part of me still second guessing myself, because from a business strategy standpoint, I understand why I'm getting that advice. That advice is smart. Just like I told the loan officers, don't go out with your rate sheet on a promise of good rate and service. Differentiate yourself a niche. I'm a niche. I could be a niche. If I say I want to have a segment and I want to have a women's coaching company, that makes me different than any other coaching company. But in the process of doing that, I alienate 30 years. I've been managing 99% men for 30 years. Those guys are my boys. They would kill for me. And there's some brotherhood there. I got some bro code in me that runs deep. And for those guys, for those boys that have said, go Buffy, go, or I'll run with you, I'll follow you, I'll fight for you, which they still do today. I don't want to make a girl company for that reason. I want to make a women's division, which I've done, which starts on August 1st, because I can help women be better than they are. Let me say it this way. I can help women find their voice. I have hit every intersection along my 30-year career that personal battles, all the labels we could call, I won't even name what they are. Women still, really in the whole historical part of our world, women are still oppressed in some ways. We know the stories. I don't want to compare women to blacks or ethnic groups that are minorities that are struggling to overcome their oppression. And we're somewhere in this cycle of history. But I can't ignore the fact that there's momentum. So for the positive side of this moment in time, we've got our heel in the door and everybody sees the door is cracked open. I feel obligated because now that looking back over 30 years, I see I did do some incredible things by percentages that maybe these women want me to advocate for them and help them find their voices. And that's what made me decide, yes, I can be a voice for women and I won't alienate the men because I still have a coaching company for everybody. But I am going to help these women. And so I have built a division that not only is going to give the same education, business fundamental education that I've created through the virtual training platform, coaching, but it's going to be the first of its kind subscription. There's communities. We have awesome communities in the banking industry. Empower. I don't want to miss anyone. NAREB, Kristen Messerly's cultural outreach and Women's Mortgage Magazine has done incredible things. Companies that have done awards, MPA, MNN, Most Powerful Women, first of its kind to do its show. And the list goes on and on and on. However, we are going to be a place where if you are a woman in the workplace and you are encountering something today and you don't know how to handle it, we are going to have a 1-800 number if you're part of our subscription where you can call in and reach somebody that is going to coach you through that situation. And it is not going to be an HR. It is not going to be an HR company that's agenda is for the corporate office. Because HR companies are not there for their employees. They are, but they're not. They're there for corporate agenda. And these women, they need a non-judgmental place to cry, to tell the diminishment story, to tell the discriminant story, to tell the sexual harassment story, and to know that they're not being judged in that process and to be given real sound advice. And some of that advice is ugly. And what I mean by that is some of that advice looks like strategy. Some of it is don't let them see you cry and go in there and lay this plan down and ask them these questions and get these answers and hold them accountable to these tasks. And in that, we are protecting these women in a time when they absolutely need to have strategic
So you're creating
advice.
access, an open communication line for women to be able to reach out
As part of that subscription, yes.
for real time advice for that is not attached to the entity that they'd be attached to. But potentially, it sounds like from someone just listening to understand it would have a higher probability for them to get sound advice from someone that has no bias.
Right.
And that is a division of 2020.
Yeah, so Women with Vision is the name of the division. And we start August 1st. It's a subscription and there's a whole bunch that's in it, but they get the complete 24 course virtual training year that brings them fundamentally from business plan all the way through all 12 months of education. They're part of our community. They get this beautiful welcome package with girl swag. And so it's got that feel. They're invited to live classes, but they have a special bucket of training that's specific to women, and it's negotiating their pay. It's, doing things that that not everybody needs, but this subset of culture needs. So, I'm really proud. That's going to become a big part. We're also having Women with Vision Awards. In fact, July to August, we will be finding through nominations in the banking and real estate industry 25 of the top most visionary women. And at my summit in September, the Vision Summit, we will honor these women. They will be featured in Women's Mortgage Magazine. So really proud of the work I'm doing there.
You were pushed at first and didn't listen to only focus on the female conversation. You decided to do both because you said 99% of individuals you've led have been men. Right. What is your message to men?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I love you boys. And thank you for your years of dedication. To this day, I get phone calls from the guys I ran with as an originator. I mean, these guys, let me tell you, they knew I was fierce, and they knew they wanted me on their team if we were competing. And if they were competing against me, I've said it before, they wouldn't hold the door open for me, because if they did that, that was the last mistake they'd ever make if they gave me some sort of edge. I just the other day had a guy call me, and he was a senior VP at H&R Block Mortgage, and I was, and we spent many, many years going up the ranks, and he sees what I'm doing now. And he's like, I just got to tell you, like, and he was naming some people out where he is from on the West Coast that he's talking to. And he's like, we're all like, watch her go Buffy, go. Like, he's like, you got the West Coast he goes, we're like sitting around dinner going, she's going to do this thing. Like, you're still soaring. Like, we watched you leave H&R Block, and we watched you take it to the next level. And then we watched you, run this company to success. And now we see you taking this next, like, incomparable leap into this next realm. And we're watching what's happening this last year. And we're like, she's going to go. Like, she's going to go all the way. He's like, we've got our popcorn out, and we've got our front row seat, and you've got our vote. Because we already know. Like, they don't know. Like, he's like, they don't know what they got when they got you, because they've seen, probably my in the troops trenches type of competitiveness.
These men, women, partners in your life in this journey that have been watching from the stands and getting in the game as well because of your leadership, who have soared to heights. In this trajectory of success, you've learned a lot. You're in high school, you're 14. What are you telling yourself? What you get after all these years of learning that your fans, or even the people that have been now in the arena because of your leadership, they don't know fully. You know it, that you're going to tell yourself. You're in freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school. What's that conversation look like with yourself, knowing everything that you know today? To start this new story.
When I was a freshman in high school, I lived in a town that was segregated monetarily, a tourist town. And I was in a group of kids, that were divided up by aptitude. There was about 25 of us. And pretty much everyone around me was affluent. And, it was opulence, and it was, the outskirts of the trailer parks and penury of, societal segregation from the monetary level. And listen, I had great parents, teenage parents, that had done incredible things and made incredible sacrifices for me. And by all means, looking back, I could see the wealth we had came really morally from the fiber of who we were. We sat for dinner. We went to church on Sundays. We did right. We were good people. We lived in a clean home. There was always food on the table, and there was no strife or struggle. They hid whatever that was. We really were sheltered from all of that. But in the bigger view of things, there was so much we couldn't do. There were ski clubs, and there were foreign travel clubs, and our school was such that we were sitting on the sidelines of all of this. And so I knew as a freshman, already I felt the pressures of going to college, and I knew I couldn't afford to go. And it was something that made me sick in my stomach all of my high school years, because everyone in my 25-person class was going to go to college. And I felt FOMO at 14, anticipating 18. And I would have great guidance counselors who I would be able to express that to and say, I'm not going to get to go to college, so why do I take French, or why do I take calculus, or why do I do this? And they said, I had this great guidance counselor, and she said, I want you to go to every sport. I want you to letter in all 4 sports. I want you to do extracurriculum. And I did. I was in student council. I was in Students Against Driving Drunk, all the extra, because you got to get great grades. It's got to be, you've got to work your ass off, but there's going to be a moment when you're a senior and you're going to be able to, get scholarships or whatever. And so I got accepted to all the colleges I applied for. This is a bittersweet part of this story. I had great grades. I did all the things that she asked me to do. And it would come down to like scholarship night. And I had applied. I was working at a Century 21, ironically, on the weekends as a secretary, which was my first toe into the real estate world. And she said to me, she gave me a stack of scholarship applications, and she said, you're going to read the criteria on some of these and it's not going to fit, but I want you to apply for everything. And I did. I spent my weekends filling out applications, and that night, the scholarship night, which my parents were very reluctant to want to go to. And, the story would be that, really behind the scenes of that, my mom and dad were very realistic and logical, and they hated to see our dreams. I had been a dreamer from a little girl. I had said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I always had this passion, and they were always bringing my feet back down on the ground. And I kept thinking, is there something wrong with me? Why am I, if I'm thinking this way, why are they raining on my parade? I thought the way I thought was fine. And, they expressed to me on the way to the scholarship dinner, there was a family conversation, and it was kind of listen, we're really proud of you. You've done an incredible job. You've worked really hard. You've gotten great grades. You should be so proud of everything that you've done. And no matter what happens tonight, we're really proud of you. And I'm sitting there that sounds like a concession speech to me. And we haven't even gotten there. They got no faith in me, what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to win some scholarships tonight. I'm in the back seat. I'm going to show my mom and dad, just how hard I've worked. I don't think they even know yet. And I would win over 30% of the scholarships of that night, and I would bring my class to their feet in the first in my lifetime moments that were so pivotal. That one night that everything's going to change, and years and days and weeks and to know that the people are behind me. And you want to know what's funny? I've had a lot of those moments in my life, and I'm in one of those moments right now. I am going to the scholarship dinner right now in my life this year. And I have that graduating class is the whole banking industry watching me. And they're saying, go, Christine, go. I feel like I've got that behind me this year. And thank you. I mean that. For everybody that is fanning my flames, stepping up, lending themselves to me, leaning on the influence of people that are going to hire me or are hiring me. And I don't know why. I don't know why, other than I think I'm being authentically real. I'm taking risks that reminds people of the human spirit and what we all want at the core of who we are in our lives. We want to take risks. We want people to believe in us. And so, my mom and dad would that night look at me differently than I think they'd ever looked at me. And that would continue for the remainder of their lives. They're alive today, thank God. And they've seen me publish books. They've seen me be on the cover of magazines. My father, last year, Jenna and Candy made a book that has all the magazines I was in. It's a complete book. I was in a ton of magazines last year, and that was my father's Christmas gift. And he would sit there with this book. I was the subject of 2 crossword puzzles last year. Her Words was the title of the crossword puzzle. And they're like, this is our, And so they never ever said to me again, your dreams are too lofty. In fact, they've said, when Christine sets her mind to something, she's going to do it. Yeah. That's what they say today. She's going to do it. And I said to my mother the other day, she said, how's the company going? I says, good. And she doesn't know business like I do. And I know that's a generic question for her to ask. And I said, it's going really good. We're selling accounts. We're doing whatever. I said, it's amazing to me. It's starting to pick up. And she's like, I never had a doubt. She goes, I have not a doubt. She said, we know you're going to succeed. We have not worried about you. I thought they would when I quit Annie Mac. And they said, no, this is the next part.
So you show them your vision.
Yeah.
What's your advice to yourself? Knowing it, learning you can't, at that moment, when you win those awards and you're alone in your vision.
Yeah.
To come full circle today, and your mother made believe more than she did, and you can lean on her.
Yeah.
What do you tell yourself?
Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something. I have had a lifetime of people telling me I've made people afraid of me. I have something in me where I have made people around me feel intimidated sometimes, or even, in my own quest for a goal, I've run a few people over unintentionally. And I get that. And so there's been some casualty, I guess, in the wake of my quest for excellence. And people get sick of that, right? People get sick of like her again, or, whatever. And there's a big part of coaching that there's so much social media, and it's so fanfare and hype and all that. I get that gets old and whatever, but I promise you, like, if there's people out there that are sick of watching my social media, if they spent 10 minutes with me over a glass of wine or a coffee, they would completely look at me differently, because they would realize that's a strategy, that the social media image is real, but it's a strategy I need the world to know my excellence and tell my story. The only way to do that is to do video and share your magazine's covers and write your columns. And so I put a lot of voice content out there, because if I don't, I'm going to be judged on my image. I'm going to be, people are going to think they know what I am when they don't. And so it comes down to this: have faith, believe, and be strong. I think and live with purpose. If people believe in what they're doing and they come from a good place, this sounds crazy. I get on the phone every single day with people that have lost their inner belief sometimes. And they may be doing good at work, they may be doing good at home. And my job is to recenter them, just like a GPS. It's to recenter them to that vision, that's why I named this company 2020 Vision for Success. It sounds so stupid. When I first said it out loud years ago, when I picked that name, I thought, does this sound too cliche? But it isn't. And it's every single day we're reminded of how important that title is, because we at any time are to the right or left of our own equilibrium psychologically. We are either failing or winning. And, my job is to help people center. If you're depressed or you're knocked to your knees, because life is suffering, and we can't ignore the death and the delinquency and the withdrawals of life that happen every day. It's happening to me too. It happens to me as well. I don't live some perfect life. I just choose to center myself. I choose to always try to find the silver lining. I choose to wake and look at inspirational things. And I really, really recover quickly. So my key to success is, if something really gets to me, I won't make big decisions when I'm emotional. I won't, make decisions for other people when I'm in that frame of mind. And it's really just to recenter myself. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what my end game necessarily looks like, because I don't want to, and that sounds funny because I'm always saying you need a vision. I have a vision for the future of success. I have a vision of of course I have a business plan that I'm living by. But I don't know what the end game looks like, because I think the end game, hopefully, is so far beyond my focal ability that I haven't even gotten there yet. And I think my 14-year-old self had no idea how big the world was, but I just knew I wanted to get out there and show the world what I was made of. And I didn't want to be labeled anymore as the poor kid or the kid from across town. And I just thought, one day those kids are going to know that I'm not the lowest on anyone's list, that I'm not, that you can rise without a dime in your pocket. And with no one believing in you too, you can. It is not the faith of other people in you that will make you rise. It is the faith in your own self that will make you rise. And I believed in me when no one else believed in me. And I still do. I'll bet on myself. I'm going to win this thing or die in the process of lifting it, because I believe I have a message that's going to save lives. I think I am going to change the trajectory of a lot of human beings' lives with the work I'm going to do in the next 10 to 15 years. Not just professionally, but I think completely in their lives.
158 interviews. A couple years ago, I decided to do these to start listening. And I think this is the first time that I'm speechless. There's nothing that I should say following the beautiful message that you just said. All I can say is that you've changed my life. I appreciate this today.
Well, you've changed my life. You have.
Yeah.
We have similar stories. We have different stories, and yet we have a lot of things that connect us. I saw your value, and just like I say, when people believe in each other, that's a continuum. There may have been people along our path in the last 2 years that didn't believe in you at times, and there's people that didn't believe in me, but we believed in each other. I have a lot of people like that in my camp. You have a lot of people like that in your camp. But it all comes back to that belief. And I thank you because we have like the most amazing friendship. And I know we're just getting started, dude. We're just getting started.
Thank you for today.